I'm Roger Wood. I'm speaking with Susan Matheson, one of the founders of Common Man for Ukraine, and a longtime participant in bringing hope and more than that to that embattled country. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
Uh, Before we get into the actual nuts and bolts of your elitist 13th visit, I'd like to revisit what you did in the way of a comic book written by a young kid and was published in Newsweek. And maybe you can get into that. What happened there?
Thanks for letting me share this story. We were in a frontline village outside of Kharkiv. And when we arrived at the village, there were hundreds of people waiting for us for food and essential items. And we proceeded to deliver about 3 tons of food to this little village. And while we were in the midst of distributing the food, I snuck away to a little elementary school that stood abandoned in that village. And I kind of crawled behind a little barrier at the door and went down the hall through some classrooms and just looked at the story that the building told. So there was a soggy place in the floor, and overhead there was a gaping hole in the roof. Was it shelling? I'm imagining so. The windows were blown out, most of them, and a perfectly painted windowsill was littered with shards of glass, and there was a tiny plastic airplane, a toy, sitting on the windowsill. And the curtain just blew in and out through this broken glass window. It was so eerie. The classrooms are all abandoned, the blackboards are all clean, and all the desks pulled up to the chairs pulled up to the desks. So it was not in use. No one was learning in this building anymore. School is a memory for too many kids in Ukraine. And I crunched, crunch over the broken glass and was leaving the building, and something caught my eye, and it was a comic book. And it was in Ukrainian, of course, and on the cover was a symbol for the Ukrainian Children's Ministry and USAID, ironically. And of course, I can't read Ukrainian, and so I brought it back into the van as we all gathered up. We don't spend very long in a particular village. We're certainly a target, and we don't want to be in one place too long. And I got back in the van and asked a Ukrainian to interpret the drawings for me and the words. And the comic book was telling children how to survive in a war. And it warned of things like not to pick up a teddy bear that you might find along the road, because the invaders stuff bombs inside the teddy bear, and if you pick it up, you'll be blown up. Or not to kick a pile of leaves along the side of the road, because often bombs will be hidden in a pile of leaves. An absolutely normal thing for any child to do. Idly kick a pile of leaves. It also said, don't go into empty fields, only travel on roads your mom tells you to travel on. And then it showed examples of different warning signs that they put along the mined agricultural fields to make sure the kids don't run in the fields and get blown up. And it just went on like this, all the different ways that a child had to remember to be vigilant in order to survive. And it was just a crushing read for me to think about a 4 or 5 or 6-year-old looking at this comic book and the drawings, the simple 2-color drawings, and asking this child to remember these tips, these suggestions, in order to live. Not a comic book filled with, scooters and wagons and balloons and the things that these kids would be thinking about and reading about, but instead that a teddy bear could cost you your life.
More than poignant, frightening.
Yeah.
Sad. Extremely sad. It's in Newsweek. They published it Can people get that, see that copy?
Yes.
Well, there's a link from your site, Common Man for Ukraine. You can get there from there.
Roger, it brings up a wider issue that, of course, we think about because our mission is the children in Ukraine. But to think about now a war that's 3.5 years old, what these children have missed. For kids who are in safe houses, far away from their families and their homes, they've missed all the normal family dinners. They don't know if their school's still standing, if their pet rabbit is still okay, if grandma is okay. They're hidden away in safe houses all over Ukraine. And school really is a hit or miss kind of thing for kids in Ukraine.
Mm.
That became quite evident. We're the wonderful recipients of some little hand knitted peace dolls that some women in Laconia knit for us by the hundreds. And they attach a little tag to each doll that has in Ukrainian, a little statement of encouragement, sending love and support from your friends in the United States. And I gave one of these little peace dolls to a girl that appeared to be about 8 years old. And I'm all excited, like, look at this. And she's excited to get a toy in this day, for her, a toy. And I said, look. And I point to the tag and say, read this, because I think she's going to read this inspiring message. She can't read. If she's 8 years old and the war started 3.5 years ago, think about what happened to her schooling. So while she should be probably reading at a third grade level, fourth grade level, she couldn't read this simple sentence. And if we think about the large scale invasion of Ukraine and the extent of the interruption of education across a country, an entire generation of students whose education has been stalled or stopped, and the long-term implications of that for this country, it's very humbling, and it calls us to action, to come home, to tell the story of the children of Ukraine, and to do what we can to help them.
I had the occasion to record a few weeks ago two high school students from Ukraine, one of whom talked about a good friend who was no longer there, probably kidnapped by the Russians. I found that poignant also. I'm sure you did.
Yes. And you bring up an interesting opportunity, Roger. The Common Man for Ukraine has invited 5 teenage actors, 2 of whom have been in our trauma counseling retreat, to come to the United States to produce a musical with some very wonderful professional theater people here in the US. There's 6 performances of this in New Hampshire. It will be in Concord and in Newbury. You can find the dates and the times on our website. But what the musical is about the stories of these children and their letters to the world. We ask kids in our trauma counseling retreat to write letters, to raise their voices so that the world can hear the voice of the children in Ukraine. And we've captured these letters and distilled them down into about a 40-minute performance. And it's talking about their experience in the war and how it has affected them, and also how they hold on to their dreams and the belief that someday they will be free and independent, that they will overcome, and that they'll find joy in a bright future for themselves. It's an inspiring play. The script is very moving, and I encourage people to check out our website and see if you can attend.
Good idea, Susan. Let's talk about your 13th trip over right now. You've already brought, I don't know how many tons of toys and food and other necessities to the Ukrainian people, but you're bringing more this time, aren't you?
Yes. We've delivered about 4 million pounds of food almost entirely to children living in safe houses and frontline villages. We've also delivered generators and about 10,000 sleeping bags and many thousands of solar lanterns to children in
Mm.
hopes that they can have control over the darkness near the front lines.
Hmm.
On this trip, we'll bring 23 tons of food to about 37,000 people. We hope to provide about a month's worth of food to each family group. That includes 5,000 kids and 11,000 elderly Ukrainians who are trapped in frontline villages. We'll visit 10 villages on the very eastern front of the war. We'll be hearing air raid sirens constantly, and we'll hear
Hmm.
explosions, and we'll be very careful of our safety and the safety of the children that we bring food to.
Well, there might be a possibility that I read that their extreme leader might stop aerial bombing. One can only hope, not only for those children and families, but for you and you've made 12 dangerous trips, Susan.
It's not something I pictured myself doing in retirement. I don't think any of the four co founders thought that's what we would be doing, but we're called to action. We're called when we meet these kids, and there's no time to be afraid. When we drive up with those trucks laden with important critical humanitarian aid and hundreds of people lined up desperate for food, people that live in isolated areas, they have no way to make a living, they're in fear for their lives, and we come with greetings from the United States. We tell them that this food, these critical items, soap, shampoo, uh, hygiene items, they are purchased by donations of everyday Americans who care about them. And whether we hear the air raid sirens and the bombing, and we can see drones overhead, and we see all the military vehicles, there's no time to think of that. All we think about is we need to deliver these goods, get these people set up for a little while, and then send our messages of love and peace and get on our way to the next village in the next town down the road.
When are you leaving?
We leave Friday, and we don't publish exactly the location of where we'll be for the 10 villages this time for our own
Mm-hmm.
safety. But we are in contact with the military, and so they're very aware of where we're planning to go, what our route is, and if they have intelligence that they think will enhance our safety, they will share it with us.
Susan, talk a little bit about your co-founders. I know Alex Ray of Common Man Restaurants has been a huge benefactor, not only his presence, but also his financial uh, distribution to the cause.
Absolutely. We wouldn't have gotten started without Alex's first wonderful ideas. Those of us who live in New Hampshire know him, of course, as a great business person. He's also a great philanthropist. He's given so many opportunities to so many people to start and expand their careers. But he's a great humanitarian as well. And because he's a dear friend, I can say he's also an out of the box thinker. And when we first came together in February of 2022 and said, we need to do something, and he said, we need to go to Ukraine, we need to find out what they need and how we can help. It was a preposterous idea. We're just regular old moms and dads in central New Hampshire. But it was the right thing to do, to meet people on the ground, to figure out what they needed, how we could help. And then he gave that first leadership donation of $1 million as a match and challenged us to raise the second million, which we did. And we thought, well, we met our goal, or did we? Because by then we'd been there 3 times and we'd met so many thousands of children in desperate need, in desperate circumstances. We decided we'd recommit and we would continue. We've raised about $4.7 million now. We're going to continue. Our trauma counseling retreats have very long waiting lists. These are counseling retreats for children whose fathers have been killed in the war.
Mm.
So we've made a commitment to each other to continue as long as the kids need us.
Are the other two co-founders still involved?
Absolutely. Every day, all day. We're all volunteers, of course. We all pay our own transportation and we don't get paid to do this work. Alex's partner, Lisa, is busy every day. We're arranging fundraisers, we're writing thank you notes, we're talking to donors and answering their questions, and also listening to their suggestions of how we can do a better job and how we can expand our networks. Steve, of course, is our connection to the Rotary Club because our truck drivers are all Rotary Club members who drive and also volunteers who put their lives on their line every time they drive a truck into Ukraine. We're very proud and happy to say we've had 730 trucks drive into Ukraine to deliver food and humanitarian aid. And we've had 730 trucks come out of Ukraine safely. We're going to add to that number in next week, and we hope to come back safely.
I have nothing else to say except Godspeed to you all.
I have nothing else to say except I'm so grateful for this opportunity, not only to speak to you, but to do this work. It gives meaning to my life. We think that it gives other people a chance to help who can't actually go to Ukraine, but they can help us bring important aid to these children. It's the privilege of my life to be able to do this work, and I'm so grateful to all the donors that make it possible.
Susan Matheson is one of the original co-founders of Common Men for Ukraine.